I've gotten you a gift.
Ooh.
It's a book.
Okay.
It's entitled "So You've Decided to Ship a Video Game."
Oh.
I'm hoping it will be helpful to you in the coming days.
Well, yeah, we're it's let's see, at this point we're about, as we record this, we're about 112 hours away, I think.
Is that where you're at, that you were counting by hours, not by days or weeks?
I just literally before we started recording, I did a tweet to somebody as a because they were like, I can't wait for the game to come out. I was like, look, it's only 115 hours. You'll be fine.
This feels like a military or disaster situation.
No. It's so like, okay, I don't want to get into specifics. At some point, maybe we'll have somebody on from the team and we'll talk about specifics of how stuff works, because it's kind of neat. But like apparently there's always ups and downs. There's always things that you're like, oh shit, is this going to work? And then you get to the point and it does, through hard work and blood, sweat, and tears. But yeah, like we are shipping the Anacrusis on Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time to Steam, the Microsoft platform, Xbox Series X, Series S, Xbox One, the Microsoft Store, and EGS as well.
The Xbox family of consoles.
Yes, the two most recent, the two youngest of the Xbox family of consoles, I guess. Okay, sure. I got to play the game on a retail Xbox last night for the first time, which was really cool.
That must feel good.
It was like, I'm going to go and tell you. So I think we talked about this a little bit, but like when we shipped the Fusho on Steam, and I was like, copying and pasting stuff inside the Steam backend and like using their CMS to update the store pages hours. Have I told this story before on the podcast?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Yeah. Like I sent Chet an email at like 10 o'clock 2 days before the Vive came out and was like, hey, I think we're going to make it. I think we're going to be ready. And he's like, but we'll probably be next week's releases. He's like, no, just put it in and we'll get you through.
Whatever.
Like working in those back ends is initially really, really cool. And then it becomes really clear that like every CMS ever is broken, and really like we had a really lovely CMS at Whiskey.
Yes.
The stuff we used to build for Tested and Giant Bomb and the sites there was really good. Still broken in really fundamental ways a lot of the time.
Sure. If you're telling me that Steam is kind of an anything goes platform on the back end, though, I would have no trouble believing that.
It's more that like they very clearly started with one thing and then just keep layering more things on top of it.
Yeah.
So like, some of the stuff that you see, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think about what I can talk about without getting in trouble. It's just real weird. And you have to kind of like one person on the team is our person who's really understands how the Xbox stuff works. One person understands how the EGS stuff works, and one person understands how the Steam stuff works. You have to kind of be able to put your mindset of, here's the weird design language of whatever platform you happen to be working on. And then like you build up almost tribal knowledge of how that shit works. But it's still really freaking cool to get in there and be like, okay, well, I'm going to push this build up and hit the button, and then it's going to go out to everybody who has the code on their Xbox or on their Steam PC or whatever. So
yeah, something about a console game that still feels like there's this intangible quality I'm having a hard time putting my finger on. Like it's official in a way that like,
yeah,
maybe it's literally as simple as on a PC you can dig into the install files and like look at an executable, and it's just like, oh, this is just a machine, just like anything else. This works.
Yeah, like
by it's got parts that interlock and they all interoperate together. But like a console game still has like a little air of magic to it. For me, does that make sense? Like,
well, for me, because I think I'm the only person on the team probably that hasn't actually shipped a game before. And for me, it's part of it is like, hey, like 10-year-old me used to get cartridges at Hills and plug them into a Nintendo Entertainment System. And as far as I was concerned, those cartridges were made with like unicorn magic and pixie dust imported from Japan. Right. Like I never thought I would be able to like create the software equivalent of one of those cartridges 40 years in the future. And it's really cool. It's a good feeling.
Well,
So,
congratulations. When
you.
can we expect the Nintendo Entertainment System version of the Anacrusis?
We're launching on Steam, the Epic Game Store, the Microsoft Store, Xbox Series S, Series X, and Xbox One. We have had a bunch of streamers playing all week, just for the record. So if people want to check out the game and see what it looks like in a non-controlled context without developers telling you how to play the game and all that, like the Firescape, our friends at Firescape played, Jeff Grubb played. There's streams up all over the place. We posted them on the Anacrusis Twitter site, Twitter page, and you can you can wishlist the game on Steam for a few more days if you go to j.mp/the Anacrusis, ANACRUSIS. I feel like I'm a guest on somebody else's show now though, because I just did all of the Anacrusis PR spiel in one like 4-minute burst there.
Consider that video game promoted.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad. Hello.
Hello, Brad. How are you doing?
Hi. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am.
Getting by.
Huh? No, I'm really good. Like, it's been really like the thing that I've done this week is stayed up too late watching people play the game, which is like a good because I'm enjoying watching people play this thing that we've worked on for a long time. So it's like if I'm tired, it's because of that. The pre-launch stuff has been all consuming during the workday though. So
do you ever step back and think how much your life has changed because in early January you're exhausted trying to ship a video game and not because you were in Las Vegas?
I mean, I'll say that like those early tested days, like 2011, 2012, when we went to Vegas for CES and drove the van out there and did the whole thing, like it was. I mean, I know you know this feeling too from doing E3 and stuff like that, but like you almost get high on the excitement of like working really closely with people for like 20 hours a day and just busting ass all the time to do as much as you can in the shortest period of time. And like I love that, like that chaos and the chaos of launching the game, very similar.
Okay.
Like yeah.
That, I mean, not everyone listening will have shared this feeling, but I know exactly what we're talking about because there definitely at E3, there was a feeling of being in the trenches with people. There was like an esprit de corps, let's say. It's
in the trenches is kind of the right vibe. I mean, without having to murder other people, I guess. But like, there's like here's my list of things to do today. It is 70 items long, right? And you just sit down and you have to block and tackle it. And you do so, like if you do it while you're eating a sandwich from the bad kosher deli in the back of the South Hall at E3 in Vegas or on the West Hall at E3, like that's when you get it done. And then at the end of the night, you go back to your hotel room and you spend 4 hours until 3 a.m. transcribing a Carmack interview or something, right?
That's right. That's E3. Ham duet in one hand, laptop in the other.
Oh, you were ham duet. I always got the corned beef because I just couldn't. I feel like once they put the food trucks out on the concourse between the two halls outside, it messed up the entire food situation because like having good food there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not right.
That always felt extremely wrong. It's like, shouldn't you people all just be at the Galaxy Court?
Yeah. Just eat some
getting the awful cardboard pizza.
Ugh. Cold French fries.
Yeah.
Like honestly, that's the only place. Trade shows are one of the only places that I would go and like I'd be tired and I'd be like, I'm just going to get a fucking bucket of Mountain Dew and just
dunk your head in it.
So jacked up on sugar right now that I can't feel my legs for a little while. But yeah, I love that chaos. I don't miss going to CS because CS has sucked for a really long time.
Well, it seems like, I guess let me just say real fast, hey, I guess we're here to talk about CS, but also,
well, this is awkward.
I think a lot of people feel that way because nobody went.
I mean, look, there are good reasons to not go to CES this year.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm not blaming anybody, but the number you sent me the story right before we started this, and dang, 70% attendance down.
Yeah, so
I think it's from last year, right? That's from last year's already kind of deflated numbers.
I didn't think they did it last year. Or maybe they just did it virtual. I can't remember.
Oh, no, you're right. They did not. I'm sorry. That was 2020.
It's from 20. Yeah. Like the normal number for CES is in the heady good days, they would say it was at least 250,000 people.
Okay. Interesting. So I want to say the 2020 number was 170. So maybe it's kind of been on the wane already.
Look, so the problem with CES is that over the last 15, 20 years, the center of the technology world has gone from like computer manufacturers and like Taiwanese OEMs and factories in China and companies like NVIDIA and AMD and Intel and the like to Apple and Google and Amazon. And none of those companies show at CES. Like I don't think Intel still shows. Microsoft doesn't show at CES anymore. So like it used to be that CES was where you went to learn about what was going to happen in the computer industry and the phone industry and all these places. But the phone industry doesn't really participate aside from the accessories and the Bluetooth headsets and all that nonsense. And the other tech people some of them show up, but once you get big enough that you have an audience already, you stop coming to CES. So it's like the also runs and the accessories and then like weird computer cases and motherboards and like good, interesting stuff. But not stuff that 250,000 buyers and press need to show up for.
All of this sounds extremely familiar in the video game industry.
It's a very similar situation because it's very analogous to like Nintendo realizing that they didn't have to do shit anymore and they could just do Nintendo Directs and control the message and control the timing and
save a boatload of money.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, like I mean, at the same time, we're like here we are, these two concurrent stories. CES attendance way down, which again, COVID obviously playing a huge role there, and the news came down that E3 will not even be attempting an in-person event.
Yeah, the CES thing, I definitely watched people that I know from that world deciding over the course of December that they were going to cancel, and then like a bunch of big companies pulled out, or maybe they didn't pull out, but they reduced their presence and went virtual and stuff like that. There, like there's big empty booths there where people had bought space and then just decided not to use it because of Omicron.
Yeah,
but E3, like E3 is really, it's a weird, like, not just has E3 changed, but like the importance of the Keighley show, like the Keighley show was a really big deal. I don't know if people appreciate like the Keighley show absorbed a lot of the air from what were formerly the Microsoft from the Microsoft and Sony and all the press conferences where the exclusives were aired, because everybody seemed like they showed their exclusives there last year. And then the platform holders got the kind of second run stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, but even with the Keighley stuff, even with the Summer Game Fest, it was not all concentrated into 1 week. It was still kind of diffused throughout the summer.
That's true.
Last year. So
well, there was the one big stream, and then there was the rest of it kind of doled out over a long period of time.
Yeah, kind of culminating with Gamescom. So like all this kind of invites the question for me. Like trade shows were kind of declining in relevance even before COVID. Like, is there a rebound for trade shows after COVID is over? I mean, assuming there is such a thing as after COVID.
I don't know about trade shows. I miss going to cons. Like,
sure, personally,
like I miss going to PAX and playing board games with people and going into like the arcade, the old console area and checking out a Dreamcast and playing, Power Force or Power Stone. Yeah. Until 3 a.m. and stuff like that. Like,
well, yeah, cons are going nowhere. Like that's obviously.
Yeah,
there will be a demand for those in perpetuity, but like the business focused trade event like an E3 and a CES, like is there a point?
I mean, my guess is that the stuff that's like GDC and DICE that are more about networking and education probably remain, but I think the stuff that's like, hey, let's get some articles in newspapers like E3 and CES probably has problems.
Yeah, like E3 is done as far as I'm concerned. I don't think there's any way that's coming back. But like CES always seemed like an even
really. You think it's not coming back after?
No, I don't think so.
Wow,
I think this was it.
So the life cycle of E3s though is that they moved to Santa Monica now for a little while as a conference pupa.
Yes,
and then they emerge like a beautiful butterfly 5 years after that.
Yes, they will have their cleansing year on the boardwalk.
Two cleansing years.
Was it? Were there two Santa Monica years?
Two Santa Monica years.
Gosh, that's hard for me to remember.
They were bad. I mean, in one hand, it was kind of awesome because like everything was really small and it was easy to see everything.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, like walking from one end of the Santa Monica strip to the other end because there were no cabs was challenging.
Yes, indeed. Well, we did cull like kind of the news we could find from CES here.
Yeah, like there was still like, so the thing about CES, like when Norm and I would go and tested, we still found 40 things that were worth making a video for.
Sure.
Right. There's still, it's an enormous convention that fills 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 conference halls, plus every hotel suite in town. And like the ratio of good stuff to crap is really bad. But at that scale, there's still 100 things that are kind of cool for every. There's one thing that's cool for every 100. This spoon will tell you that you're eating too fast. Nonsense product.
I do not need a spoon telling me.
Yeah, dude, I know that I eat too fast. I am aware.
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't need judgy electronics telling me how to live my life. Damn it. So what did we find? We got some cool stuff. We have some cool stuff to talk about, I think.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but the first thing I saw this week that leapt out at me was a SteamVR headset.
Brad loves VR. Noted. We got it.
Like, I have nothing against VR. It just doesn't feel like much has been happening in that space for a while. But
I mean, the mobile stuff is what's been
like
sure. the like, Quest 2 and those equivalent kind of headsets.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I feel like I saw some Quest 2 sales figures, or at least implications about Quest 2 sales figures that were very positive.
I mean, I guess that's great for Meta, the
sure
people who make the Oculus Quest.
Yeah. Anyway, Panasonic, I found this on CNET. Panasonic revealed a full spec SteamVR headset that like sort of looks like Dr. Octopus goggles. Like they are goggle shaped, not headset shaped.
There's some straight up Neil Stephenson nonsense.
Yes.
It looks like they cup around your eye socket, right?
Yeah.
I'm intrigued, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, like they're not exactly glasses, but they're sort of getting into that territory.
I feel like
they've got earpieces and eyepieces, not a gigantic helmet type thing.
Yeah, it doesn't look like swim goggles. It doesn't look like a snorkeling mask.
Right.
So
go ahead.
They've done this thing before where they show headsets. Like they showed a flip up headset years ago. Maybe that might not have been Panasonic actually, but they showed glasses that looked like this last year, I believe, that were mobile based ones that I don't think ever shipped. So maybe these will actually ship.
It says these will be out in the spring, I believe.
Yes, I know. They always say they'll be out in the spring, Brad.
Oh wait, they have a price. Does that increase your confidence?
Okay, that helps a little bit. What's the price? How much?
$900.
Woo.
Actually, the CNET story says exactly. Panasonic demonstrated an earlier version of this headset 2 years ago at CES, but this version is actually being released this spring.
Woohoo!
For around $900. And it does hook up to a PC, like it does require the full shebang.
It's equivalent to the Vive or the Index or one of the other SteamVR headsets.
Right. Like the reason this is notable for me is that, like, I mean, you tell me, but getting in and out of VR is just kind of a hassle. And also the sensory deprivation kind of isolation aspect is tough when you're trying to deal with like the real world around you at home.
I mean, children, that's a benefit, not a.
I guess it depends on your lifestyle and perspective. But like, I mean, the reason really that this seemed notable to me is like, look, I don't buy into the metaverse stuff any more than anybody should. But like part of the barrier to like wanting to be in VR for a meeting or to go grocery shopping or whatever the hell they're trying to position it as is like, it needs to be very low effort to just throw these things on and then take them off again. Right.
I mean, that definitely helps. Like the headsets with the hard straps, like the Index and the Oculus and all that stuff that you just leave the strap adjusted to fit your head and you can slide it on and off, are way easier to work with than the ones that launched originally with like the soft floppy elastic straps.
That's fair.
The things, there are a couple of things about this. One is that I don't think you can wear glasses under it.
Oh, sure.
Which affects like 80% of the population or something.
Yeah, like the earpieces look like they would actually conflict with glasses.
Well, and the cups would the cups would fit around your frames.
Yes, absolutely.
Now that's not as much of a problem because you can get VR lens inserts that snap in front of your thing, and I assume that they would have worked through that. I don't know for sure. That's the big one, but like having something smaller and lighter. As somebody who in the early days of Foo was wearing a headset for 3 or 4 hours a day most days, it's really nice to not have to not have a crick in your neck if the headset weighs less. The weight on this was good. It looks small. I mean, it doesn't have a back weight to balance out, which is the thing that the Index did that helped a ton. So I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. Am I going to spend $1,000 on a VR headset at this point? Probably not.
No, definitely not. It's more just seems like a milestone in the kind of necessary VR shrinkage that needs to take place.
Yeah,
before it becomes truly ubiquitous. Like they just need to be less bulky and easier to put on.
I think that's part of it. Yeah. Does it use the SteamVR tracking, or is it a different kind of tracking? Did they say?
I'm
Are they using
not
the lighthouses?
sure about that.
I didn't see anything in the.
Yeah,
I looked at 2 stories and nobody said. I think the previous edition was using a Qualcomm chip that did SLAM, the thing with the cameras.
Oh, actually, yes, you're right here. The headset has its own Qualcomm Snapdragon XR1 to enable tracking.
Okay, so then they're not using the lighthouse stuff. So that begs the question how the hands are going to be tracked with this, and that I have questions about too.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
Yes.
Interesting. I would call that one.
Yes.
Can we talk about the TV stuff?
Sure. Do you want to talk about HDMI? We'll talk about standards.
I want to talk about Samsung finally getting, Samsung has spent the last 8 years, maybe not that long, maybe 5 years, talking a serious amount of smack about OLED technology.
Yes, which was very clearly just because they were not in a position to be profiting from it.
Yes.
Themselves.
And guess what, Brad?
Yeah. Hey, seems like they've changed their tune pretty dramatically.
Well, I mean, they're rolling out quantum dot OLEDs.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see these in person. The kind of TLDR is that where the existing OLEDs use yellow and I think white lights and then some filters to do the OLEDing. This uses blue, which is more energetic and can be filtered down in more interesting ways. The upshot is the thing that they're claiming, I guess, is that the highlights will not be as blown out as they are on traditional OLEDs, but you'll still have the same nice, deep, rich blacks. So your HDR images will look really nice.
Okay. The thing I tried to find, which I didn't see anything about, is the patent situation. My understanding was always that LG had patents that was kind of preventing other, because, that's why you hear Sony's using LG panels. LG obviously is using their own, everybody's using LG panels, right? That was all there was for manufacturers.
Yeah. And
I don't know what has gotten Samsung around that to the extent that they can make their own now.
My guess is it's a cross-licensing agreement.
It's kind of, you scratch my patent, I'll scratch yours.
Probably
kind of situation.
Or, I mean, it could also be that the quantum dot stuff is different enough that they're able to bypass whatever patents LG had.
Sure.
And then the third one is that it could be manufacturing patents owned by somebody else, because sometimes the important patents aren't for the technology itself. It's for how you make the technology at scale.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's the kind of thing they're never probably going to talk about realistically, unfortunately.
Do you think, are we going to move into a kind of a post LCD world eventually for this stuff?
God, I hope so.
What do you have against LCD?
I mean, they're fine, but we've been using LCDs for 20 years now. And I'm I think emissive stuff is way more interesting. I mean, that's why OLEDs are neat. I think the micro and nano LEDs that, I think the next phase is, instead of using LED backlights with filters that change colors in front of them in a screen door kind of grid, is actually generating pixel colors with pixels that are just very, very small, with the micro LED and the nano LED. But that I was kind of surprised that I didn't see that they're the same. It seems like the usual, hey, here are some really expensive options in this space for extremely wealthy people / tech demos. Not any real products in the micro LED space yet, which is about.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Samsung actually was selling a model of micro LED TV last year for
$75,000 or something, right?
150.
Yeah.
$150,000 for a 110 inch model.
But it was 300 inches or something. Oh, 110 inches. Yeah, it was big.
So they announced an 89 inch micro LED at this CES. I don't see a price on that one. Totally affordable, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, look, it only has to half 3 more times, and then it'll be almost affordable.
Do you know why? Why do these extremely bleeding edge display techs start with such big screens? Is it just hey, anybody who has the money to buy one of these things anyway just wants something incredibly flashy for their gigantic home?
It's because it's a lot of the cost on this stuff is because the cost of manufacturing it, you have to build a new factory to manufacture it, right? And you probably have to develop new processes to do the manufacturing. So that means you have to build the machines that go into the factory aren't just the same machines that you use for everything else. So you start out by buying really, it's the same reason Tesla launched with the Roadster and the Model S, right? They started out with the expensive high end one with a really good margin so that they would lose less money on the amortization of the startup cost compared to like a $25,000 car or whatever.
Right. Also, I assume in some of these cases, like manufacturing has to mature for the display density to get small enough.
I would think so. I thought that the micro LED people were like, we can do this right now. It's just we have to build the infrastructure to blah blah blah. I don't know. I'm not waiting on anything at this point to buy a TV. I'm just like, our TV is good enough, and I don't really feel the need to get a new one.
I feel we both have plasmas.
Yeah,
and B, I feel the same way as you, and I feel so weird about saying that to people because people think of plasma as such an archaic technology, but like it does still look pretty good.
Well, the only real thing that's pushing me to consider upgrading the plasma is that it makes the room so hot in the summertime when we turn it on.
It's not great in that respect.
Which means also it's using a shitload of electricity. So
yeah. I mean, the thing that's creeping up for me is that so much content is moving toward 4K and especially HDR.
Yeah.
And, I feel like we're going to end up being shut out of stuff eventually because like you can obviously display HDR stuff on an SDR TV, but it's not always very good.
I think
like
the HDR thing is the FOMO I have on the TV. Like I care way less about the 4K than I care about the HDR.
I mean, I miss HDR. It's great, but also like, I've been messing around with the auto tone mapping in Plex a little bit, like feeding some HDR stuff in there to see how it comes out. And
it's bad.
Some parts are okay, but like it's incredibly washed out. Like it just is not like, I don't think we're quite at the point where stuff is going to be shipping HDR only just yet.
We're not going to be at that point for a long time because there's still probably the market penetration of 4K is still of HDR 4K is probably still really low, especially given how jacked up I guarantee you that there's, I don't know. I was going to say 100. I guarantee you that there's millions of people that have HDR TVs. Some double digit percentage of the audience of 4K HDR TV owners don't have the right cable and or port plugged in to get classic HDR to turn on.
Like that's the classic. Your parents got the HD cable box and then ran a composite out to the TV from it.
Yeah, like I think it was Gary, our friend of the pod, Gary Whitta, when he got his HDR TV, he had a cable that was run through the wall from like where his consoles and stuff were up to the TV set, and it was like the wrong version of HDMI 2. So he had to re-pull the cable.
Well, funny you mentioned HDMI versions.
Huh. Well, I mean, we're good. We're done, right? HDMI 2.1 is locked. It's good forever. You don't need any more.
I have bad news for you.
Oh, no.
Multiple people sent this to us somewhat excitedly. You know how we feel about standards around here.
I love a good standards body.
Yes. HDMI 2.1A.
Oh, that's sure to clear things up.
It wasn't even enough to do a new point release.
What are they adding, Brad?
It seems like source-based tone mapping.
So instead of okay. So are they? Oh, does this mean it's aware of what TV you have hooked up to, and aware of what the intent of the person who did the tone mapping was? Is that how this is working?
Sort of. That's what this Verge story makes it sound like. A new HDR feature that offloads some of the HDR tone mapping to the content source, like your computer or set-top box, alongside the tone mapping that your TV or monitor is doing. So that's like pretty similar to the stuff with Plex I was just talking about.
Yeah, but presumably in hardware and better.
For people that don't know, HDR content on an SDR TV, just like it tends to look very washed out, like it or overly dark, like the color space, the brightness, like they're just not tuned for the display. So it like algorithmically, there are ways you can try to adjust for that, but it just comes out looking pretty bad in most cases.
It looks like you turn the saturation down on your monitor.
Yeah.
Way down to like 10%.
Yes.
And then also some colors just turn gray. Like some of the brighter colors. It's interesting. I mean, I don't know. At some point we should do a contest to see which is the jankiest spec at this point. And is it HDMI or is it USB-C /3.1A, whatever? I don't like.
We're going to throw the dark horse contender DisplayPort in there.
I mean, DisplayPort, though, there's only one. Well, there's two. There's a small plug and a big plug, but only everybody uses. At least the physical connector is easy on that one.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. This seems fine. The weird thing that I learned reading about this, though, I didn't understand that the HDMI consortium's requirement for labeling ports is that you always have to put the latest version of the port on, even if you don't support the features of that version of the spec.
That is the actual reason to talk about the story. Like source-based tone mapping, fine, sure, whatever.
Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, this thing about the labeling requirements, I assume, has been the case all along. But for whatever reason, it really blew up around this 2.1a story. Everybody kind of came to realize how messed up this is.
Yeah. So the kind of TLDR is if you bought a TV this year that has one port that supports the HDMI 2.1 features, like the 10-bit color and the Dolby Atmos and all that stuff, and 3 ports on your TV that do not, they're all supposed to be labeled HDMI 2.1.
Right.
Now, thankfully, the manufacturers, for the most part, don't do this because it's stupid. But like, it's asinine. Why version the specs if you're going to use the most current number no matter what?
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, essentially all the features that are part of the spec are basically optional to be included on any given port. So it's pretty tough to actually know what your TV can do.
Well, yeah. And yeah, I mean, this seems just like bad business, Brad.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think we should actually need to do an HDMI episode because I don't understand HDMI anymore. This is the scary part.
I have nothing to say to that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's true.
I can't. I was just like frozen in horror at the idea of digging into an HDMI episode and filling out an hour of content about port standards.
I mean, the one thing I will say about HDMI is at least they only have, I think, 3 cables because they have the small skinny one, the small wide one, and then the big normal one that everybody's used to.
Yes.
So good job on that, I suppose. I don't know. I'm afraid part of the reason I haven't bought a new TV, honestly, is that I'm afraid I'll fuck up and buy one that has the wrong kind of ports. And then I'll never be able to get 120 hertz and HDR and Dolby audio and all of the stuff that I want out of it. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Hey,
I'm just going to stop watching TV.
That works. I was going to say you could also do what I do and just kick the can down the road forever. Just keep using the thing.
Speaking, no, that's 2 stories down from now. Okay.
We could just get into it now.
Okay. Speaking of kicking the can.
Yes. AMD talked about some CPU stuff.
That's exciting.
Yes. Yes and no.
Does this mean we have to have Gordon back on again? Because I like seeing Gordon.
Eventually. Let's say maybe later this year when the Zen 4 chips launch.
Okay.
The Ryzen 5000 stuff that's out now is Zen 3 for reference.
Mm-hmm.
Zen 4 is their kind of full-on next generation architecture, which I think is going to be labeled Ryzen 7000 at retail. I think 6000 is going to be the mobile part again.
Did they talk about like what's changing at the kind of core level with the Ryzen 4 stuff versus Ryzen 3?
I don't think so.
Okay. This seemed like a pretty soft launch from the Nantech article I read.
Yeah. So there's going to be a new socket. AM5 is the new socket that will be debuting alongside that, and AM4 lasted for 5 years, I think.
Really, like three. I think AM4 launched with the Ryzens, the first Ryzens.
I think that's right. Yeah. So
yeah, that's cool.
Presumably that's going to be around for a while, but in the shorter term, I was all excited because they have been talking about doing a Zen 3 refresh for a while.
Well, hold on. Before the AM5/Zen 4 stuff, they did talk about PCIe 5.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
And DDR5, but they didn't talk about like architecture changes inside the. And they said it was going to be on TSMC's 5 nanometer process.
Yes.
Presumably.
Sorry, I could have mentioned that stuff. I think the DDR5 and PCIe 5 stuff has been assumed, if not stated, for a while around that platform. Because again, it's going to be around for so long.
Like, yeah, they've generally been pretty aggressive on supporting new PCIe standards because of the number of CPUs that they can put on their sockets. So
I feel like PCIe 4 devices, like SSDs specifically, have just barely started to reasonably be in the marketplace and affordable.
I think only the newest Intel machines can even support PCIe, like even natively, like they just back compat to PCI 3.
Right. Like what is the use case for 5? I mean, obviously this is future proofing, but.
Well, so 4 gives you the ability to do stuff like the console fast load speeds with SSDs.
Right. I
have no idea what I haven't even looked at 5 yet.
Hey, do you want to throw another standard on the pile to do an episode about?
I'm probably good on that one, I think.
Yeah.
The other big change is that AM5 is an LGA socket like the Intel one. So the flat bottom of the chip, and then the thing that you break off and jack up will be on the less expensive part, presumably.
Yes, on the motherboard,
which is good.
Can't wait to catch my T-shirt on those pins next time I build a system as well.
I told you, man. That's why I always build new computers nude. Nothing to catch. Nothing to catch.
That's a solid policy.
Yeah.
So these the Zen 4 chips are going to have this 3D cache on them that AMD has developed.
Okay. What makes it 3D, Brad?
It's stacked on top of other cache.
So it's like 2.5D then, really, isn't it?
Right. It's like you build up and not just out.
I don't know about that. Sounds risky.
Yes. But so they've been talking up this 3D cache stuff that they developed for a while, since late last year. Like, they've got it in some data center parts. I was all excited because the rumors are, or have been, that they were going to refresh their desktop parts with it.
Yeah, man. It'd be awesome to have like a 5900, 5800 with that.
Yeah, which seems like a great time for me to finally buy in, because then I could feel like I was getting the latest and greatest and not something that I could have bought a year ago.
Well,
and waited on.
Could have bought a year ago with an asterisk, I think.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah. For weirdly, CPUs, I feel like, have been the least hit of just about any kind of high-end consumer electronic stuff in terms of supply chain and pricing.
Yeah, it's because you don't use those to mine Ethereum.
Okay, that's probably part of it. Also, they last forever, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's not a huge demand on. They're kind of like TVs, right?
Exactly.
People won't upgrade CPUs very often. I am living proof.
Yeah, you're on a 6700K?
7700K.
So which chips are getting the 2.5D cache?
So they announced exactly one SKU to refresh from the Zen 3 line with this extra cache, and it is 5800, which is not bad. It's the 8-core.
That's maybe actually the way you do video stuff though.
Yeah, 8 cores is not. Come on.
I mean, I guess I have 10. I can't remember. I don't even know how many cores I have anymore, Brad. This is how tired I am at the end of this week.
I'm sorry. It's been a week. 12 seems like a good number. 12 has always seemed. 16 maybe a bit extravagant.
I like base 2. I feel like 12 is weird because it's not really base 2.
I mean, I get it. Sure, I get it.
16 seems pretty good though. Anyway,
I was all excited for the 5900X, the 12 core Ryzen 5000 to get this extra cache so I could finally buy one, but they're not making one. They're not making one. So
look, you can get on the AM5 train.
Yeah, I know, but that's
2022.
I mean, that is this year. Technically, that will be this year. It is, in fact, now 2022.
It might be time to upgrade the 7700K, dude.
I think it's past time.
Yeah. I have a laptop that's faster than that now. Like a lot faster than that, probably. Yeah.
Do you think that this Zen 4 launch will actually be a launch in 2022?
I don't have any idea.
Do you think it's a paper launch?
I don't like the term paper launch.
No? Why not?
Because it implies that there's ill intent from the vendors who are trying to get us to not spend our money on a competitor's product.
I see.
In exchange for waiting until the next year to buy their product.
Okay. Paper launch, obviously, maybe was a little bit too pointed of a term. I mean, in this case, it's more about supply constraints and how much they can actually get into the channel, right?
Yeah, I think that's my guess is, I mean, look, the new chip, new socket, new memory, PCIe 5, like there's a lot of pieces there. The memory, like if the memory vendors have trouble making the memory, if the motherboard vendors have trouble with boards, like you could end up in a situation where you have one of the 3 things that you need and can't get the other 2, or 2 of the 3 things you need but can't get the CPU or the memory or whatever. So it's a little iffy. I don't know. It'll be expensive, but as long as you keep motherboards and CPUs, you're probably fine.
Yeah, buying into that bleeding edge of a generation, like the very, very first one, is also a little scary.
I mean, the other thing I'll say is that, I mean, the AM5 stuff, you probably won't be able to, for the long term. I mean, the socket will be physically compatible for a long time. They almost always, the first couple of revs, have problems going much beyond the next one or the one after.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say, though, is you have the home server. So like you have a grateful degradation path if you,
that's true,
for like upgrades, and probably like if you move a more efficient chip and switch to an OS that actually has power management, then like you'll end up, I mean, probably won't save money, but you know, you'll spend less running the server.
A NAS with a 12-core CPU does have a certain appeal to it.
I mean, it's also, on the other hand, it's an incredible waste of power.
It sure is.
Yeah. Nvidia,
Sure.
our friends at Nvidia announced some stuff.
Yes.
Well, in addition to the usual bevy of games that support RTX and DLSS, hello, the Antichrist supports DLSS.
Oh,
Yes. But you can play at 4K 60 on almost any of the 2000 series cards,
okay.
which is kind of cool. They announced a couple of new GPUs in the RTX 3050 and the 3050 Ti, which I think are they all laptops? Is that what those are like the ones that they pair with the Intel chipsets for like your kind of like, I don't want to say low end because an $800 laptop isn't exactly low end anymore, but like
Right.
in the 800 to like ultra, like $800 to ultra, what would have been an ultrabook a few years ago.
Yeah.
Like the 800 to $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 range. Those are typically pretty good performance. Like I've had laptops with those before and have been quite pleased with the ability to play games while I'm in a hotel room someplace.
I mean, are we getting into the kind of territory where somebody might just buy a laptop to be able to play games because they can't get anything else?
I think I'd buy a pre-built machine before I'd buy a laptop.
Sure.
The problem with gaming laptops especially is that usually like the design considerations for, hey, I want a good usable laptop, which are I need a bunch of battery in there. And like if you want a laptop that lasts 10 hours or 12 hours or 15 hours and you can use it all day, probably something with any discrete GPU is not going to be your jam. Right. Because like the not only do they draw more power, but they also require more space for the coolers and stuff like that. So you have less space for battery in there. And then you end up in a situation where like you have a smaller battery and you have more, more stuff drawing power. So you end up not probably in like 45-minute, like these laptops, I would assume have pretty good battery life. But they're not going to be like a MacBook, an M1 MacBook that runs for 6 days or whatever ridiculous thing it is.
Right.
Has yours come yet, by the way?
I did pull the trigger. I bought it, but it was like 6 weeks between making that decision and actually receiving a product. So,
that's a long time.
Stay tuned for get back to me in, let's say, mid-February when I can tell you how the notch is treating me.
Okay. First notch encounter for Brad.
That's right.
February 2022.
I'm already taking stock of the various little bite-sized applications that have come out to hide the notch or otherwise address it.
Yeah, look, I think before you do that, you have to live with the notch for a minute. I want you to just bask in it. I want you to
like a literal minute, like 60 seconds. I think I can.
No. I want you to spend some quality time, and I want you to evaluate the notch impartially as a human being who I think it's going to be good for you.
Right now, my leading candidate is one that just turns the menu bar pitch black, so it kind of disappears into the menu bar, which like I'd really prefer a light gray or white menu bar on macOS. But
that's what the phone does, though. The phone, most apps, if the notch is going to be a problem for the app, the phone just blacks out everything above the edge of the notch, so you don't see it.
I think that's what they should have done by default. Just put some diagnostic info up there. Put a clock. Put a battery thing.
That's what's up there.
Drop the menu bar below.
It's literally what's up. I mean, on the phone,
on the phone, what's up there on the phone?
Look,
totally.
right
I'm talking about on the laptop. Yeah. Yes, I get it.
They also announced or teased the GeForce 3090 Ti.
Yeah, which like, what are you going to do with that? Why?
Well, I mean, a lot of people bought them last year because it was cheaper than buying a scalped 3080 or 3070.
Sure. I could pay $2,000 for this 3080, or I can just pay $1,500 for this 3090.
Yeah, exactly. The main thing is performance compute. Like people who are doing like the market for that card is people who are doing extreme math and machine learning and stuff like that.
3090 remains a productivity type situation.
I don't think one fits in my case. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's a long boy compared to the 3080.
Yeah.
They didn't give a whole lot of details. They just held it up. And they said it seems like it's a higher clocked version of the existing 3090, maybe on new silicon, but that's me guessing, not me knowing.
Where are we at in the standard kind of NVIDIA life cycle? Like we're
3000 series came out this time last year.
No, it was more like October. We're about 15 months out from the first cards in this generation shipping.
So we're probably getting close. We're getting into the time when they're going to start doing, like usually it's 18 months to 2 years. The pandemic might have affected some of that. So I would be curious to see. When did the 3080 came out? Midway through the 2020.
It was about October,
like fall of 2020,
September, maybe 2020, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. And then the TI landed about 6 months after that, as I recall.
I mean, the idea of an RTX 4080 just feels like rubbing salt in a lot of people's wounds right now.
I mean, more cards out in the world means more people more stuff for people to buy. They're getting easier to get. Like we were able to grab some for work a few weeks ago without a whole lot of hassle
at MSRP.
I didn't do the purchase. So I don't know.
Don't ask too many questions.
Look, man, there's a guy out behind the fish market and we just went out there and no. Then like OEMs are still able to get them. So the real reason you can't get them on retail as much is that the OEMs that are getting them, through their normal suppliers, and that's where most of the hardware is going. So if you want to get a good video card right now and you don't want to pay an extreme premium for it, what you generally have to do is buy a pre-built machine, which sucks for people like us who like to upgrade, but here we are.
Yes.
I mean, I'm kind of interested in I'm always interested in what the high end of the NVIDIA line looks like, because they tend to do pretty ridiculous performance stuff up there. But I don't know. It seems like an event at the end of January that we'll have more about that and maybe hints of what's to come after.
Sure. I feel like a lot of people are sort of wondering what is to come after in a general sense.
I mean, look, man, if you could tell me what comes after, I would be really thrilled. The last thing is this Matter smart home standard.
Yeah.
Which I think you told me, you were like, hey, do you want to talk about this Matter smart home standard? And I just sent over the XKCD about how standards proliferate.
There's an XKCD for everything, it seems.
Truly is. So it's from the people who made Zigbee. The connected, they're now called the Connected Services Alliance or Home Alliance or something, but they used to be called the Zigbee Alliance.
There's something about Alliance that sounds kind of positive and uplifting in a way that Consortium does not.
I mean, that's true, but that's probably just because of Star Wars for you, because you're thinking of the Rebel Alliance, I think.
I guess that's true.
This one, so Zigbee's a mesh network that operates in the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz spectrums, I think. It doesn't use IP. It's not like Wi-Fi or anything like that. This Matter smart home standard, which is like a software layer, has a protocol called Thread that is a network layer that operates over IP. So it's theoretically, you plug it into your network, you connect it to your network, and then stuff just happens, and you don't have to have like separate net meshes. If you need a hub to stay connected to the internet and bring things from one side to the other, then it can live in another device like an Alexa speaker or something like that. So you don't need a dedicated hub like you would with SmartThings or Home Assistant or any of the other options.
Right. How confident do you feel that this is going to bear fruit? I mean, like, it seems like most of the major manufacturers are behind it.
I mean, it seems like 50-50. I'd give it a 50-50, because often it feels like the manufacturers come in and they join because everybody else does, and then they want to make sure that it pushes their vision of the technology forward. And if it doesn't, then they'll just tank it with a whole bunch of nonsense.
That's exactly why I asked, because my experience of connected to home smart stuff to date has been the exact opposite of this.
Yeah, I mean, like Apple's approach with HomeKit requiring a dedicated chip at the beginning kind of bombed out, and they backed off of that eventually. I mean, look, this is a market I think that's probably still small enough that there isn't a leader. Like, there's definitely market leaders, but whoever has the iPhone level success here is going to blow through whatever ceiling has previously been established, like WoW did for EverQuest.
Sure.
So, I mean, who knows? I like the old name for this Matter thing much better, because it used to be called Chip, the Connected Home over IP.
Yeah,
it's a much better name. Yeah, I'll look more into it. It might be worth doing an episode. The nice thing is the Matter stuff is all open source. So that means the software layer is open source. I don't know if the network protocol is, the Thread protocol is. I didn't get that far into the white papers, but it's an interesting idea. And look, the stuff that exists now still sucks. So the kind of TLDR for this is, if you already have a bunch of smart home crap like I do, probably you don't care about this. But there's a much bigger audience of people out there that don't have any smart home crap who probably do care and have been buying like HomeKit stuff and works with Alexa stuff, which is usually just Zigbee or Z-Wave, but is labeled works with Alexa, and are disappointed in how it works because it's kind of shitty.
Yes, that's what drove me to Home Assistant in the first place, is that all the stuff we had was so poorly interoperable.
The one thing I will say is a lot of the articles I read about this talked about like not having to translate from IP to the Zigbee layer as a performance benefit, which is just stupid because like hitting a button on your Home Assistant or SmartThings hub to send a radio signal to Zigbee 15 feet away from you is still an operation that's under 100 milliseconds on every time I've ever tried to time it. So yeah, it's like non-issue.
Well, hey, if you're trying to promote your new standard and justify its existence.
I have been to so many, hey, we have a new standard meetings at CES. The best one of all time was the, hey, remember Play Anywhere? The code that you would get with a Blu-ray disc?
Yes.
That would let you play it on Disney movies anywhere or Hulu or
Voodoo.
Or Sling or Voodoo or Apple TV or whatever. Yeah. Those people were like, we have an exciting new standard. All the studios are on board except Paramount. And like, it's going to go really good. We're going to have a really good time with this. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to like, you're not even going to want a Blu-ray into it. You're just going to buy a Play Anywhere code because it would be so awesome. I think they're still in the things. I don't have any idea. 8 people used that thing, right? Like it's really hard to tell what's bullshit and what isn't bullshit when you're inside the reality distortion field of CES. Yes,
indeed. I think they pump oxygen into that place. You know, it is in Vegas after all.
Oh man, they always do. The secret of going to CES, I'm gonna spoil it because I intend to never go to CES again unless somebody pays me, I would say like 5 to 6 figures probably. Like high fives, not 10K. 10K is not going to do it. The secret of going to CES is to stay someplace you don't have to walk to a casino to get to your room. So, which is why we always used to stay at the Planet Hollywood Towers, which is just condos that Planet is attached to the Planet Hollywood. And they had a separate entrance that didn't require walking through the casino.
Now, what is the danger there exactly? I mean, I can think of a lot of them, but I'm specifically in your experience.
Well, so walking through the casino, you just end up smelling like cigarette smoke and sadness.
Okay.
So like, you know, you have to go through the casino to eat. The casinos are unavoidable. But what you don't want to do is get back to your room and be like, I got 20 minutes to take a nap. I'm going to lay down for 20 minutes and close my eyes and then get up and be like, oh, fuck, I smell like cigarette smoke. And now my pillow smells like cigarette smoke. So
the less time you spend reminding yourself that you're in Las Vegas, the better.
Yeah, exactly. Like don't enjoy the pool scene. Don't catch a show. No. Maybe Siegfried Roy, pretty good. But like, aside from that, not Siegfried and Roy, Penn and Teller, Jesus.
Yes. What was your buffet policy while at CES?
I'm going to call out Mike Tatum because after the first successful CES, when we brought 5 people to CES, we made 43 videos, as I recall, whilst at the show.
Okay.
Pretty good amount of videos for the number of people we had there.
That's a lot.
We did 5 live shows that were at least 3 or 4 hours long, podcasts every day. We had guests. We broke news. We saw USB-C for the first time. I was like, hey, can I take everybody to like the buffet for dinner tonight on the last day before we drive home the next morning? He's like, we don't have budget for that, man.
What?
Yeah.
Which buffet would you have gone to?
I probably would have gone to the one over in the fancy new hotels. Oh God, what's it called? The something spoon, the gilded spoon, the hold on. I'm gonna look it up.
I don't know why I always had the idea that the Bellagio was the nice buffet, but
it was for a long, long time.
Okay.
Norman, Joey, and I one time went to. This was after we brought a bunch of people to CS. We went to the seafood buffet at. Can't remember where. Maybe MGM. It was someplace. It was in the lower levels of one of the older casinos. It was. I'm going to go and tell you, seafood buffet, always a mistake.
I was literally, the words seafood buffet seems like a mistake were just like flashing through my brain as you talked about that.
Wicked Spoon at the Cosmopolitan is the one that is the banger.
But, okay. So a talking spoon, no thank you, but a wicked spoon I could get down with.
Yeah. I'm going to say my general move, though, pass on the buffet.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're usually really expensive and I'm never going to eat enough to recoup my investment without hurting myself.
And then you're just going to feel very sad later.
Yeah. And I would much rather go to like the good Thai place that's off strip or even like Sage. Like there's a bunch of, the thing that happened is all the fancy chefs open restaurants in Vegas, and like even like their fast casual things are usually pretty good. But like Bouchon in the Venetian always is delicious. There's a Peking duck place in the Wynn that is as good as any place in San Francisco, I think. Just go out there and eat the foods. It's good.
Or don't go out there at all.
Yeah. Or order a Cobb salad from room service and never leave your room if you don't have to.
That's right.
That's always been my policy.
That's right. Well,
Brad, would you go to CES?
No, thank you.
You're good. Okay.
Good. Yes. Okay. Congratulations. You've made it through another CES.
I think the last one I went to was 2014, probably at this point. Maybe 2015. I can't remember. I miss it a little bit, but not really.
Yeah.
Is what I would say.
That's how I feel about E3. Like there are things you miss about it, but on the whole.
Yeah. Like honestly, like CES is such of less a networking event than E3 even is. Like E3 is small enough that like if you're at those food trucks in the middle of the day getting lunch, you're going to see like 5 people at least.
Yeah. Yes.
And like that part I miss. I miss seeing that. CS is not a scale that you can do that. Occasionally we'd like bump into the Wirecutter people or the Gizmodo people, or like we'd see folks we know and while we're waiting for something that like press people go to. But for the most part, it's just a bunch of people there trying to figure out what to buy for like the Singaporean equivalent of Best Buy, right?
Yes.
So it's a lot. And I don't miss that. I miss going to GDC and I miss going to E3 and stuff like that. Anyway, we've reached the portion of the show where we thank our listeners, Brad.
We have. And I would like to say thank you.
Thank you, listeners.
Thank you, patrons.
Thank you, patrons. Thank you, listeners, and thank you, patrons.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should not exclude the non-patron listeners.
That's a good point.
As always, we would like to tell you that Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod is a 100% listener-supported show. Without the listeners, the show wouldn't happen. So
that's right.
Without the patrons, the show wouldn't happen. And if you would like to find out how to support the show on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/techpod. Again, it's patreon.com/techpod.
Hang on. Can I clarify? That's patreon.com/techpod?
It's patreon.com/techpod.
Wait, we said it 4 times. Is that 3 is the sweet spot? Did we
go too far?
Did we just pass some kind of cognitive tipping point where 4 times is going to make them forget?
They're never going to sign up now. They're annoyed. Anyway, you can sign up for $2 a month. You can gain access to the Fabulous Tech Pod Discord, where there's a bunch of beautiful nerds talking about awesome stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. Like the conversations that happened during the keynotes, the CES keynotes, a little more subdued than the ones during the E3 keynotes. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I'm going to say on balance, this is a pretty, I don't want to say underwhelming CES, but very meat and potatoes.
I do not feel particularly whelmed.
Yes. Hey, there's some new CPU stuff. There's some new graphics card stuff. There's new TVs. There's new VR stuff. There's new phones. It's a CES.
Yeah, it's a CES.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you to all of our patrons, but especially to our executive producer tier patrons, including Paddle Creek Games, makers of Fractured Veil, Andrew Slosky, #Bunny Crimes, Jacob Chappell, Joel Krauska, Twinkle Twinkie, David Allen, and James Kamek. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And again, if you want to find out, you can get everything from access to the patron only episode, which you heard a couple weeks ago. We gave you a patron only episode a couple weeks ago when over the Christmas holiday when I was in the hospital. Right.
Previously, we had debased ourselves only before our patrons, but now we've done it for the entire world.
Brad's shame is out there for everyone to see now. That'll be it for us this week. We'll be back next week with another episode of Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. As always, send your emails to techpod@content.town if you would like to have questions turned into answers, or you can post them in the Discord channel if you're a patron. And I guess we'll see y'all next week.
You guess?
I mean, I'm planning on it.
Okay, fine.
I mean, there could be a meteor or something. Oh, I can't believe I forgot to cold open this.
Go on.
The James Webb Space Telescope is fully it's an observatory now. There's a mirror in place to reflect light back in the general direction of sensors. The sun shield has expanded. 344 critical single points of failure have successfully completed.
What was was it Hubble? in the 90s? Was Hubble the one that had the mirror that was out of focus?
Yeah, they had a bum mirror in it. They didn't check the mirrors enough before they put it in. They had to send astronauts up to fix it. But James Webb is at the L2 Lagrange point, like trailing Earth. So it can't, maybe it's ahead of Earth. I can't remember. But anyway, it's really far away. We couldn't send people to fix it if it jacked up.
Oh.
So it would just be $10 billion flushed down the toilet.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize the stakes were that high.
Oh, yeah. I can't imagine the tenterhooks that the people who are running this project have been on since for the last 2 weeks since they launched it on Christmas. Presumably, it's cooling down now.
Okay.
5 months, I believe, to the first images. It's a scientific marvel so far.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, marvel of engineering. Nice job, everybody.
Yes.
We should do an episode about that.
We should.
That would be way more fun than a PCI Express episode.
I think you're right about that.
Have a good week, everybody. We'll see you next week.